Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business since 1994. Today's podcast, I'm going to talk to you about everyone wants to look better and feel better. And I think that's a truism. Before I get into that, I want to thank our sponsors, Jonathan and Lynn Gilden at the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 275 star reviews on Zillow and over 100 million in sales between the two. They can be reached at thegildengroup.com, and I will put that link and their phone number in the show notes so you're not running around looking for a pen, because they are worth contacting. So, everybody wants to look better and feel better. I heard another trainer say that when I was early in my career, and he's right. And we talked a lot about that. We got along well. He'd been in it a little bit longer than me, and that's one of the truisms I think we can really hold on to, and I find it hard to really think of anybody that doesn't feel that way. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, so look better. Let's start with that one. Everybody wants to look better. I know you can take that into maybe a little bit negative direction, but don't. You want to look better for you, not comparing yourself to other people. You want to look better. And let me tell you, it is very, very important. When I worked at a chemical dependency place, Stuart Marchman, in the very early 90s, I got my first degree in psychology, and I thought I was going to work in the mental health industry. And in many ways, I still do. And it was a great experience. It was a great job. I learned so much about human nature and about tough love and about all that kind of stuff, and very rewarding for me. But one of the things that we always stressed with the adolescents, because I worked for the residential adolescent program, or RAP program, so basically it was teenagers. We always stressed that in the morning, after they do what they need to do, and before they come out to breakfast, and before they do their first group session or whatever they had planned socially, they had to present themselves well. So they had to make sure that they showered, and yes, that was kind of a tough thing for people in rehabilitation and people who get depressed. It's very hard for them to do that. So it's not just a, well, shouldn't you want to thing? Not necessarily. If you worked in those kind of places, you would see it's very hard for people to actually want to care for themselves. And that is self-care. So that was one of the requirements. They had to shower. They had to put on presentable clothes. In other words, not clothes with holes in them, and not just like, nasty socks that had holes in them and all this stuff. They had to make sure that they dressed in the best clothes that they had, presented in the best way that they can, with showers completed and their hair brushed and combed and all those kind of things. And we also always encourage them to sit up straight and put their best foot forward. So it's very important, and mental health studies have shown that people that take those steps in the morning feel better about themselves all day long. So looking your best and feeling your best often go hand in hand. Now, this isn't a vanity thing. I mean, this isn't about, not the way I'm talking about it, not the way I'm selling it. This isn't about, let me get the best six-pack abs I've ever had in my life and display them on Instagram and make people feel bad. Well, it shouldn't, because we really shouldn't care what people do. But the reality is, young girls look at some of these models, which are often photoshopped, and then unfairly compare themselves to them. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about feeling your best by looking your best. And I think when you really feel good about how you look and feel, my belief is that you have less of a tendency to put that on social media anyway, because typically when you're doing that, you're looking for other people to literally like it and comment. If you can do that for yourself because you know you look good, then you really don't need that. But that's a whole nother subject, which I've kind of gone on about in the past. This is about looking your best. And too often times, what ends up getting in the way of that is the old arbitrary weight or the scale. That becomes a real problem for us trainers, because looking your best by no means having that lowest number on the scale. The scale is a very important tool for somebody in the early stages of their weight loss. Yes, I have my new book coming out. It's all about weight loss and fat loss, most importantly, and I stress it over and over in that it's a good tool, but it's absolutely a tool that can be abused, that is weighing yourself, because that number is arbitrary, all right? It's just kind of a number we use now, and oftentimes it's probably pretty outdated. When I went to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta several years ago, the thing that really stood out to me was this really cool timeline of different positions in football and their height and weights, and it blew me away. I think these numbers were from maybe like the 1930s through the 1950s, so a long time ago, yes, but not like generation upon generation away. I mean, we're talking like less than 100 years, and it blew me away. The average running back weight was 160 pounds in college. Some of them around 140 pounds in college, but 160 pounds. Whereas today, the average running back weight would be somewhere around 220 pounds. The offensive linemen were around 185 pounds, sometimes tipping a little bit over 200 pounds. Now, those are the big boys, people. Today, these big boys are well over 300 pounds. UCF, the school I went to and the team I happen to follow in college football, I know that their offensive line averages as a line, so that's 5 players on the line, over 300 pounds. So we're talking a difference of 120 pounds, maybe 100 pounds over the course of 70 or 80 years. So people grow, we get bigger as a society, not just in a bad way. Yes, obesity's gotten way out of hand. I get that, and I talk about that, but obesity because of the health crisis. But overall, we have gotten bigger as we evolve as a species. We just do. Now, the average height of that running back in the day was 5'6". The average height of those tackles was around 5'10", 5'11", compared to the average height of a running back now around 6 foot to 6'2", and some of the tackles on UCF's team, one of them is literally over 7 feet tall, and they average over 6'5", 6'6". So we have grown as a species, yet we're still using numbers that our parents and grandparents used to use. And I see it all the time, and it's very frustrating to me. Now, yes, there are people who are morbidly obese and even obese. And the difference is morbidly obese means that, I mean, again, I hesitate even using the language of the numbers because I think there's fault with the BMI. I really do, which stands for body mass index. I think there's fault with it. But morbidly obese is a 40 on the BMI. 40 is a morbidly obese number on the BMI chart. Had a little glitch. If that kind of hesitated, I apologize for that. Whereas a 30 is considered obese on the BMI chart. Now, again, I hesitate using that because the BMI, a lot of people think is great, but not too many people in the health and fitness world, because it's not for really the average everyday person or athletic population. It's a little better than the old height weight charts that they used in the 40s and 50s and 60s, but really it's a glorified BMI chart that is often used as the insurance company uses it as a gatekeeper type number. So I hesitate to use it, but that's what morbidly obese means. And really what it means is that you are unhealthy obese, and there's something you have to do about it. So weight in that instance, bringing the weight down, focusing on that, yes, is important. And it's important to get it to healthy standards, absolutely. But healthy standards really can't be defined by the BMI or the scale for the most part. So think about these athletes. Think about the athletes I just spoke of. If you know anything about football, and if you don't, I'll explain it to you. A running back who is now around, say, 200 pounds, 6 foot, 200 pounds, say in college, more like 6'2", 225, 30 pounds in the NFL. They are chiseled. They are between 5 and 10% body fat, possibly even less than 5%, getting down into essential fat. They have muscles on their muscles. There is essentially, really, as I just stated, no body fat on them. Yet 200 pounds at 6 foot is going to put them in the obese category, which is ludicrous. They're not over fat. They're very healthy. So what is a healthy weight? A healthy weight is one where you look at yourself and you say, I feel like I look good. And then your health numbers are good. Those are numbers that are still pretty good. Now, the medical society, the good ones, the good doctors, and there's many of them out there, quit giving physicians such a hard time, will tell you that, yes, they've been slightly tainted by the drug industry bringing certain numbers down. Yes. But ultimately, cholesterol is important numbers. Triglycerides are important numbers. Blood glucose levels are important numbers. Your blood pressure is a very important number. So those are the numbers we want to focus on. If those numbers are good and you feel like you look good, like you feel good in your own skin, you feel good in your clothes, because that's what's most important, then guess what? You're at a healthy weight. Quit obsessing. A few pounds down here or there is not going to make or break anything, and in fact can make you unhealthy because you're not eating good nutrition to sustain a healthy body. I used to show a picture. This was, I date myself here a little bit. I'm sure there's more modern examples of this, but when I was starting out in my career, maybe a little bit into it, I used Gabrielle Reese as my example for women. And if you know anything about her, she was around, I believe, 6 feet tall. She was tall. She played volleyball, and maybe even a little taller, actually. But I know she weighed around 170 to 180 pounds, and she was solid muscle. And I would show a photograph of that to students, and I would say, how much do you think she weighs? And I didn't say anything about her. I didn't say the height, because that would give it away a little bit. I just showed them a picture, and she had, great curves. She looked lean. She was lean. And they'd always say, oh, man, I don't know. She's skinny, 110, 120 pounds, Maybe some would go as high as 125. And I'd say, no, she's about 175 pounds. And they'd look at me like, no way. I said, way? Yes, because she's tall, and she's athletic, and she has muscles. And because she has muscles in the right places, which is genetics and working out, meaning she had, good broad shoulders and muscular arms, muscular thighs, she weighed a little bit more, and she looked great. When I say more than the average, maybe 6 foot woman, because she was very athletic looking. So would you rather have seen somebody like try to keep their weight down at that height, or Gabrielle Reece, I think we would all say Gabrielle Reece had a beautiful body, and most likely still does. Don't know. I should probably check on that. But the point is that we don't or shouldn't focus on the scale so much, because it absolutely can make you unhealthy. These numbers were invented years ago. Our species has evolved. The BMI essentially even states, even the people who founded the BMI state, this is not for the athletic population, people that seek to have more muscle. So are you supposed to want to be like the non-athletic population? I mean, why would you do that? Muscles make you healthy. Muscles are what drive your metabolism up, so you burn more calories, so you can stay more healthy. Why on earth would you try to strip your muscles away? Which is exactly what happens when you continue to undereat, trying to reach an arbitrary number that really doesn't mean anything to anybody. Lower weight. Why? Why would you do that? It really doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I mean, those that know me know I like critical thinking. I always turn a blind eye to I should say I never turn a blind eye to people's opinions. Let's look at the data. Let's look at what's really going on here. So we say, okay, so the BMI should be here. It's like, let's critically think about this. So that means if you're a 185 pound, 5'8" bodybuilder looking male, you're obese, and let's get you to 155 pounds on the BMI. And the way we're going to do that, because this person doesn't have any body fat, is to lose all their muscle by starving them and doing a lot of cardio to get them down. And that's going to make them healthier. That's not critical thinking, my friend. It all comes down to feeling better and looking better. And when we work out, when we do resistance training, whether it be with body weight, whether it be with Nautilus machines or other selectorized machines, whether it be with free weights, whether it be with dumbbells, whether it be with bands, we are attempting to build muscle, and muscle is very metabolic. Muscle is alive. And I don't know why I have a mini cough this morning. No, I'm not sick, but it's there. Oh well. So we want to have, maintain, and build that muscle at all times, and totally focusing on the scale can get us in an unhealthy situation for sure. Now, everybody wants to feel better. Let's look at that part. That's true. I mean, don't you want to feel better? Don't you want to have confidence? Don't you want to have higher mood? All of those things are going to come from working out. I mean, you hope. I mean, obviously, again, there are situations where people need to get well, both physically and mentally, and hopefully are striving to do that the best of their capabilities. Yes, for sure. But working out, healthy lifestyle, always helps you to feel better about yourself. So when do you not feel good about yourself? It's when you're tired, right? Whenever you're overly tired because you're not sleeping well, or you're too stressed out, or you're working too hard, you're working too many hours, or maybe you don't feel well because you eat a bad diet, and that could be a diet of calorically dense foods which just make you feel lethargic all of the time. Or maybe you're going the other way and you're starving yourself to reach this number on the scale which somebody told you meant something. And I'm going to also say that in a minute I'm going to cover part of that too, because we can't always blame the people putting the numbers out there. Part of that is on us, and I'll explain that in a minute. But we can't feel good when we're starving ourselves to look better and we don't have any energy. And in reality, if we are training to live, so to say, right? Not living to train, but training to live, not a slave to the grind, but we're doing this stuff so we feel better. if we think of it as fueling for our workouts or fueling for our exercise, we're going to have the fuel to feel better. So in other words, if you know you have a big workout coming up, whatever that might be for you, maybe it's a trail run, maybe it's a great workout in the gym where you're going to do legs and you're a bodybuilder or a football player and it's a leg day. Everybody knows that's a really hard day in the gym and you want to really feel good in there. You want to push up some weights and you want to feel good around your buddies, whatever it might be. Maybe it's a group ride. You're meeting your cyclist buddies and you want to have a great workout with them today. Or maybe it's a swim group and you're meeting your master swim, and you know that's a tough workout. Trust me, master swim workouts are tough and you want to hold your own. Well, you fuel for that. You fuel for that depending on the time of day. But let's say it's the night before, maybe it's an early workout in the morning you're going to do. And if you're thinking about fueling for a better body versus sacrificing calories to meet a certain weight goal in the morning, it's going to be a very different outcome or a different way that you're going to eat. You're going to eat maybe some nice whole wheat pasta the night before with some good protein source in it, whatever you tend to like. Maybe it's tofu and pasta sauce if you're vegan, or it's ground turkey if you're not, whatever. But you're eating a healthful meal the night before with some good vegetables, so you're ready. And then you get up in the morning and you top that off with some healthy carbs to make sure you have energy for your workout. That's totally the opposite of what somebody's doing, starving themselves to meet an arbitrary scale number. And then you're not going to have a good workout. And it happens with us all the time as trainers. All the time. Probably 2 or 3 times a week we'll hear somebody say, I don't know why I don't have any energy for this workout. You know, it's like, well, you know, did you eat? Well, you know, I'm trying to cut back. It's like, well, there you go. I mean, what are you trying to cut back from? I mean, that's the question. All right. Now, I told you I'm going to pick up on how it's not all the number maker's fault, right? We blame people a lot. We blame doctors. We blame the media. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that everybody has a role. I don't think that doctors have a negative role, really, like we try to make them out to be. You know, sometimes I'll hear people say, well, you know, every time I go to my doctor, you know, they give me this and it doesn't work and this. And I'm thinking, well, I mean, what do you want them to do? I mean, you're continuing to complain about the same thing that maybe there is no real solution to. Like maybe you're overthinking this, or there's nothing they can do about it, and they're trying to help and they're human too. So they're like, you know, I don't know. I mean, try this. I mean, sometimes there just aren't answers that somebody can solve for you. So, you know, that might be the case with that. But so sometimes we blame the doctors. But here's my observation. Sometimes, often, I'm going to move that sometimes to often, all right? Punch you between the forehead a little bit. You want something that's just not in the cards for you. And it's not necessarily best, but you're doing it for reasons that only you and your best friend or your spiritual advisor or your counselor can solve. And that is, you're not being realistic about what you want, what you have, and where you are. And you know, I'm probably going to get yelled at here, but you know, this is my podcast and I'm really honestly trying to help. Ladies, this is mostly you. Guys kind of go the other way. You know, I'm not saying it's great, but they do tend to go the other way, and they don't see their obesity sometimes. And again, when I use the term obesity, I'm not using it like BMI, because I can look, I mean, again, you know, not to beat a dead horse here, or tired horse, whatever you want to say, but like I can look at a bodybuilder somebody's going to call obese and I'm like, nah, guy looks great. I'm talking about somebody you can look at and say, yes, that's unhealthy. They have a huge belly. They got lordosis because of their big belly, so they're leaning backwards. That's not healthy. That's morbidly obese, and I'm not being judgmental. It just is. That's a health problem. Most likely their numbers from their blood glucose levels and their insulin levels and their cholesterol levels and triglyceride levels are all off the charts bad. So that's a problem. So sometimes they don't recognize it and they'll say, oh, I'm healthy as a horse. It's like, okay. I'm talking about the people who I would look at as a trainer, and I can be very objective. Absolutely. Been doing this too long not to be. And you can ask the majority of my clients and they probably think, well, you're just full of shit. You're just telling me that. It's like, no. Look at them and say, you look fine. What are you worried about? You look fine. And then I'll say, what are your numbers? Well, no, my cholesterol's good. My triglycerides are good. I'm like, okay, and? Well, when I was in high school, I used to weigh this. Or my neighbor weighs this. It's like, okay, there you have it. There it is right there. Did you ever stop and think that your particular body does not want to be 120 pounds anymore for whatever reason? Call it hormones, call it you put on muscle in certain places, call it you filled out at a certain age, and that's your healthy weight. Like, everybody has a different healthy weight that only they know by how they feel, how they look in the mirror, and all those kind of things. And the scale doesn't always reflect that very well. Trust me, it can fool you badly on that. So the problem is not a matter of physical fitness, but acceptance. And I would say there's quasi-eating disorders that go in there, meaning the obvious eating disorders can be clinically diagnosed. And they are bulimia, where somebody binges and purges. And that, by the way, over 50% of college-age females have done it at least once. That's a statistic. There's anorexia, where basically it's a self-starvation program. Now it's an eating disorder, binge eating disorder, where the person binges emotionally, like they're using food like a drug. That's classified. And there's not one that's really labeled, but manorexia, it can go either way, where men get too obsessed with either keeping their weight down, which is really the same thing as anorexia, so who knows why we got to attach a gender to it. It's, most eating disorders, the majority of them are more in females, but men obviously can have any of those three. And sometimes the anorexia can be they don't see the muscle on their body and they continue to try to get bigger. And that in itself is a sickness, and that's where some of the PEDs come from, the performance enhancing drugs, when people just won't accept the fact that they're not going to have a certain muscular build. By the way, the PEDs don't help if the genetics aren't there anyway. So the quasi-eating disorder that I like to call it is more like, it's a little bit underneath all that. Like, you can't necessarily diagnose it because you'll say, well, or the counselor, because I've had clients who have had bulimia and some anorexia, and I always send them out for medical care and social services, because I'm not equipped to handle that, and I don't want to say anything wrong or bad to hurt somebody in their recovery, because I consider it very serious and something I want them to treat. So, with that being said, then, if someone was to say, well, have you ever binged and purged? And the person says, well, no, but I'll find myself like running the next day a lot more than I would normally. So it's little things like that, or some body dysmorphia things where you'll say, oh, you look good, you've been working out. Oh, I got to lose about 10 pounds. I just don't like this. And they grab some skin on their midsection and, imply it's fat. And you look at them like, okay, that's pretty body dysmorphic. So there's things like that. And it tells me that, what's going on here is exactly that. The person is worried about the scale. They're of healthy weight, but they won't accept their weight where it's at. They want it lower and lower and lower for whatever reason. Again, only they can work that out. But as trainers, as physiologists, as people in the sports medicine world like myself and others, it's very difficult because we're trying to tell you you're of healthy weight. Now, there probably are some in my industry that don't and thrive on that, but that's pretty shitty. I don't know too many professionals that do that, like the real professionals I know that have degrees in it and have legitimate certifications. I don't know any that have those qualifications that do that, but it may be out there. But ultimately, the professional trainers try to get people to realize you're healthy, you're fit. Let's focus on building some muscle. There might be a goal weight you have in mind, great. But then after a certain point, it's time to say, okay, I'm going to work on being healthy, which means I want to look in the mirror and see a nice toned physique that I have through working out and eating right, not starving myself. I want to feel good. I want to have energy. I want to be strong in the gym. I want to run a 5K or walk a 5K and feel good afterwards. I want to go to master swimming and feel good. Whatever it is, that needs to be the focus. And we can't help you when you don't accept where you're at. We just can't. And I'm sorry, but that, my friends, is an epidemic. It's an epidemic in my world. I see it all the time. The questions on Facebook, the questions on Twitter, the questions on Instagram. How can I get rid of this? How can I get rid of that? And I'm looking at them going, and I can almost do it with Ellen's voice, my partner in crime here, she'll say, get rid of what? That's like her voice that I've seen her do so many times. It's like we're seeing something you're not seeing, lady, So that needs to be the focus. Everybody wants to look better. Everybody wants to feel better. Can we do that? It's tough. If you have any questions, if you listen to this podcast and you need me to direct you to some more help on this, absolutely I can. I can help you go in the right direction. If you maybe needed to be bitch slapped a little bit, that's true. I've been worrying about these 3 pounds when ultimately my doctor tells me I'm healthy. My husband loves me. My wife loves me. Everything's good. I don't know what I'm so preoccupied with. Only you can figure that out. But if you need help with that, I'm more than happy to steer you in the right direction. Okay? Until next time, be Max Fit. Max Fit does not mean of your lowest body weight. Trust me, as a physiologist, as a trainer, when I see that look sometimes, I'm like, that doesn't look fit. And be Max Well, and Max Well, maximum wellness, does not mean that either. Maximum wellness means high energy, high muscle, looking good, feeling good, powering through, being a champ, smile on your face. Let's do this.